I'm your host, Sarah Thomas, and I'm so excited you tuned into Fit Girl Talk Radio. If you are listening on a podcast platform, hop over to YouTube. I say it every time, but I really want to get some of you guys over to YouTube to watch some of these videos because I do think it's important. But I won't go on and on about that today. Thank you for tuning in wherever you're tuning in from. Today, we have on a brand new guest, and I'm so excited to have her. Her name is Sheeva, and hi, Sheeva.
Oh,
I started following her about, oh gosh, I mean, time's so weird right now. 2020 like is a blur, but a while back because
been
she
over a year. Yeah.
over a year, right? So Shiva was some part in Defiance Fuel. I never met her at any shoots or anything like that, but she was in charge of coordinating everything. So I started following her, and she has a very unique, special journey and message on her socials. And I'm so excited to have her on. So, without further ado, Shiva is coming to us all the way from LA. So, welcome and tell us all
Yeah.
about yourself.
Yeah. So, my journey and what we'll probably be talking about the most right now is becoming Adderall free. So, I was on Adderall for 17 years. And about three and a half years ago, I decided to uh, go medication free. And that included my birth control, that included my anxiety meds, and really dive into natural alternatives. I found myself dealing with a lot of side effects. I found myself unhappy, and I wanted to make a major change, and it was the best decision I've ever made.
I didn't realize that you went entirely medication free. So, this is
Good.
really exciting. I can't wait to hear all
Yeah.
about it. So, why don't you take us back to the beginning of getting on the medications in the
Yeah.
first?
Yeah, so I'll start with when I was around 12 years old, that time of, where a woman starts her period and hormones change. And I started to get a lot of issues with behavioral issues with taking, with my grades, all of that. And so we went to see a hormone specialist actually to start. And that hormone specialist, said that I had PMDD and that I really needed to get on something to balance my hormones. And so that was probably the start of my journey in struggling with, behavioral issues and school in general. And so we first got me on birth control, and then I hit around high school, 14 years old, freshman in high school, and my teachers complained about me not sitting still. And so we had the conversation with my teachers. My parents were very against medication, actually. They're very holistic people, which I'm very thankful for. But when you have two teachers coming and saying, your daughter needs to probably be put on meds, and then you go to a doctor and a psychiatrist and they do a lot of testing and say, you have ADHD, she has anxiety, she has mild depression, this medication is going to help her out. They were for it. And so I started taking it, and immediately was getting panic attacks because I took 40 plus milligrams. But at the same time, my grades improved, my attention improved, became more of the teacher's pet than the problem, right? And so that was the goal ultimately. I felt mentally better, right? I felt amped up all the time. It definitely took some time for me to figure out dosage so I wasn't cracked out. But um, you know, did that throughout high school, and again, still had a lot of issues with anxiety, behavioral issues, but my grades were great. So, fast forward to college. College is when the anxiety, depression medications came in. After 4 or 5 years of being on the medication, and mind you, I was teeny tiny. I was like 90 pounds, 5'6", like very small in high school. Yeah. So being super small, obviously at that point, I didn't deal with being teeny tiny in college. I started eating more and really just didn't take care of myself with the food I ate and the exercise that I did. I wasn't aware that that helped with mental health issues and or anything that I was struggling with. And so college hit, and I found, that it was causing other issues for me, and that's anxiety, the side effects that come along with taking a medication. And so doctors recommended anxiety meds to counteract, the side effects, to help. So got on an anxiety med. And at that point, I was in college, I was drinking a lot, I was partying, I was having fun. And mixing those drugs with alcohol at a young age wasn't great. So that being said, did that throughout college. Again, still had a lot of the same behavioral issues, but my grades were great, so we were good. Um, Fast forward a little bit later, and I was having, career and everything was great for me. I continued to prosper there, but other areas of my life kept falling short, right? I'd have a lot of issues when it came to dating and or relationship building. I had anger outburst a lot, right? And I always thought it was myself. I thought it was me. I drank a lot on the weekends so I could get rid of my anxiety. And so we get to a place where I am co-owner of two boxing gyms. I found health and wellness, so that's great, right? I've learned that, exercising, eating right, what I put in my body matters, and if I don't do that, then I'm not feeling great. But then I also had major hormone issues and fluctuations there when I started gaining more weight, and weird things happening with my body. And after 15, 16, 17 years on a drug, it started not to work as well as it used to, really. And my ADHD was still there, along with all the terrible side effects that came along with it. And so I got to a place where I had everything in my life. I had, I owned businesses. That was my goal. That was what was going to make me happy, right? I had hundreds of friends. I had a great, community. I lived very well and was what should have been happy, owned homes, did all the things, and I was still very, very unhappy. And that was when I decided I've got to try. I tried a few times throughout my, 17 years of taking it, but it was near impossible. It was like you were detoxing off of heroin, right? Like it was flu-like symptoms and, just a lot of not feeling well, and then major weight gain, because again, I didn't understand the process of getting off of it and the proper way to do it. So I decided after 17 years of being on medication that I was going to leave Nashville and move to Los Angeles, taper off my meds, and figure out who I am and how I can naturally do and deal with ADHD, anxiety, and depression. And so coming out to LA was the best decision I ever made. It wasn't easy. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it is the most transformational thing that I have ever done as well. I started to figure out some things that I thought are really interesting. Is I started to figure out, you know, who am I really off of this drug, right? A lot of the side effects and the things that I thought were me were actually the drug, right? Things that I enjoyed became different being off of the medication. Um, my level of empathy for other people changed. My ability to be in a moment, right? For example, like looking at the sky and looking at the trees and not being distracted by the thoughts in my head, was capable of happening. I saw a lot of things that I was floored was a medication and it was not me, right? And so, 17 years, that was majority of my developmental life on a drug that sped up my body and my brain and um, changed my personality, changed who I was, right? And so my thought was always, your doctor tells you you have to be on this medication, then you have to be on this medication, right? And so, yeah, so here I am in Los Angeles. It's been 3.5 years since I got off my medication. And ever since I got off my meds, I feel like my life has kind of fallen into place, whether that's my career, whether that's my personal life, and whether that's just me being strong in who I am and feeling good about that.
So, wow, just taking in all of that. And I think that your story is something that a lot of people can probably relate to, right? Because that is when people get put on ADHD drugs and things like that. it's just amazing to think about something that I've never really considered, that somebody starts taking it at such a young age. And then you just said it yourself, all the developmental years, all of these times that you're growing and changing and experiencing life and this and that and going through all these phases. But you have a constant going on in you because you have, artificial drugs that are affecting your brain and your hormones, your thought processes, the way you process emotions, and the things you look at, and everything like that is a constant that's in within you, and that's very strange. And I have never thought about it from that perspective. So super inspiring. I want you to touch on what are some, so if there are adults listening that are on Adderall or any other kind of Ritalin, whatever else is out there, what are some of the side effects that they may be having from the drugs that they aren't realizing is a side effect from that?
Yeah, I mean, every person's different. I'm going to go ahead and clarify that. My journey is my journey, but I will say from speaking on it for 3 years, they all start to sound the same. I say things on my platform and people are like, oh my gosh, I feel that, or like, that is what I experience too, right? And a lack of sense of self, right? Of understanding who you are. It's almost like you feel like you're a stranger in your own body, right? Your creativity sometimes goes out the window after years of being on it. At first, crazy creative ideas, and that's how it kind of started, and it was amazing. And then I actually slowly realized that I wasn't me. I wasn't who I wanted to be. Career, right? Like you go after a career that you might not love because you're on a drug that allows you to perform a certain way that is beneficial for you in a career aspect, but maybe that's not really what you are meant to do, right? People get stuck in a job and they're like, well, I can't get off my Adderall because I can't do my job without Adderall, right? Well, maybe you're in the wrong field, right? Maybe you're not doing a job that you actually genuinely should be doing. Anger outbursts is a big one. I mean, I think that's a big thing. And understanding, even with females, like, is that happening around the time of your period every single month, and are you able to stop those anger outbursts from happening, and then weight fluctuations for sure. There's a lot of issues with gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight. That's because it's messing with your hormones. Anxiety, depression, people are dealing with really, really high levels of anxiety, and anxiety and ADHD are so intertwined, right? Whether, do you have anxiety or do you have ADHD? And, what's causing what, and so a lot of people who might get diagnosed with ADHD, maybe they have anxiety. And what are the underlying causes of these things that are happening and these mental health issues that you're struggling with, right? Let's look at the root of the cause of what's happening.
So I'm glad you brought that last one up, because that is kind of what I've seen in people that I know that are taking Adderall or Ritalin, that later down the road, then it seems like Xanax or something else is prescribed later down the line. So from somebody's perspective that knows what it feels like in your body, I'm just genuinely curious, were there times when you were just like up and up and up, and then you just like hit like a crash, and then what do you just like, do your doctor just say, like, "Well, maybe you should just start taking Xanax at night or when you feel anxious," like, and how do those drugs interact when they're together?
Yeah, great point. I'll start with how Adderall actually affects your body in general, which is up, 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 up. Adrenals get shot, thyroid gets shot, and then you crash, right? Which, oh, well, then you must have anxiety and depression, right? So let me get you on an anxiety and depression medication, So then you get on that medication and then you almost feel numb, right? You're on these things that are balancing you out, or sleep issues, right? That's another one that I didn't mention, but you'll struggle with sleep, and so people will get on sleep meds. And so you're literally putting your body through these crazy ups and downs on a daily basis. And so yeah, it for me, it was a, either depending on the anxiety or depression medication, it was a um like a feeling nuts and crying and going crazy, or it was a numb, I have no personality, I have no feelings, I don't, and just this zombie like Eeyore walking around, right? And so no, I'm not crying and depressed, but I also have no feelings, and that sucks, like I want to have feelings. And I
Right.
think that's my biggest message here is it's okay to feel, right? And that's what these medications are doing. It's like if you're feeling something and you're nonstop crying or you're having a hard time with something, walk yourself through it. Don't mask the symptom and the issue with a pill, right? Like I'm a firm believer that if you're in deep depression and you really really need to get out of a depressive moment, maybe a medication might be something you can do for a short term solution. I think that's the key as well there is look at this as a short term solution. And I will also say if you are to, you know, be feeling these things, ADHD, anxiety, depression, try a natural alternative first before you try something that's very addictive and very hard to get off of. I have many people who come to me and they're like, I don't even know if this drug is working for me anymore.
Right.
I'm just on it because I don't know how to get off of it, right? It's too lengthy of a process for me to get off of it.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to go to next. But I will say I like how you said that. Now, keep in mind, anybody listening, we are not doctors. Please don't
Please,
stop taking your medication
no,
because you listen
no.
to this episode. Okay, so we all agree with that. Um,
I didn't mention that in the beginning. I want to very much clarify that I am giving my experience, and I actually will not work with anyone who is still on a medication. I need you to work with your doctor first. You guys go through that process together, and I'm here to support you after. That's
yes,
it. Yeah.
yes. So I like that you said that though about depression. I read somewhere recently, unrelated to this, that somebody that their platform was they wanted to prove that depression was a symptom, not the cause. And so I like that you said that. And I'm not saying that anybody out there that's struggling with that it's not real. That's not what I'm saying. But I do like how you said that and kind of soul searching and digging deep to figure out what's going on and maybe what the cause might be. So with that being said, I did want to talk about the side effects when you come off, because like you just said, it's a lengthy process, it takes time, it's miserable. It feels like you're coming off of, like, some deep, bad, like heroin. Like, I know I've seen it in people, I've watched them go through it. So tell us about what that looks like.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be that bad. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you that right now. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of guidance out there from doctors tell you, oh, there's not gonna be many side effects. You can just get off of it. It'll take you 2 or 3 weeks and you're good. What I want to mention is that there's a lot of different factors here when you're coming off of medication. Let's start with what your mind and body are used to, right? Habit forming, right? So something that you're habit forming and feeling is a normal human being does not feel that ramped up. So when you no longer feel that ramped up, your mind is saying, give me that thing you kept giving me. I can't do this without it. Right. So for years, I remember for the first year, anytime I would struggle, whether that was ADHD based or just I couldn't, I was having a bad day, which by the way, that happens to people, I would immediately go to, I need my Adderall. And so it took me about a year to train my mind that I don't need this drug. It's okay. Right. And I had to do a lot of practices where it would be just, I would say, I need my Adderall. And instead, I would switch that wording out. Every time I would say that with, no, I do not need Adderall, or I need to heal, right? Is what I would often tell myself is, no, you need to heal. You need to heal. And so I would literally just exchange the words. Okay. So that's one area of it, right? And then two, it's your body is balancing out, right? Your body is used to having something in your system. Your adrenals are shot, your thyroid's probably shot. You're probably having autoimmune symptoms, and so there are a lot of supplements out there. And I'm not a take 30 million supplements a day person. I actually want to get you on as minimal supplements as possible, but to allow you to live an optimal life throughout the process of getting off of it, there are supplements that are going to help with those side effects, right? And some of it could be crying, depression, very hungry. Depending on the person, it could be different. It can also depend on the person and how long they've been on the drug, right? So, there are supplements that can help you with those cravings and or those being too sleepy or fatigued or depressed or anxious, right? And so um, that's an area that you will definitely struggle with coming off of the medication. So it is a body and a mind thing. And really coming to terms with the fact that your brain's not going to be as quick as it was before. It's just not. And it doesn't need to be that quick, right? Yeah.
So, how long I mean, obviously everybody's different, but how long did it take for you, I guess? I know 3 years ago you made this decision. Did you taper off or like how long was the process?
Yeah, so I will always say never cold turkey. Never ever cold turkey. That can have, huge long-term effects on your brain. I had to very slowly taper. I'm someone who is sensitive to everything. Like I could drink half of a drink and I feel it. Doesn't matter what it is, my body is very sensitive. So I tapered off little by little. I also really recommend just being able to rest in your free time, right? Like certain things that I had to do was I stopped drinking for a while. I was very, very particular with what I put into my body: gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, immense amount of greens, nonstop with water, right? So I drink my Defiance Fuel. I had at least a gallon of water a day. I actually, something a lot of people don't know is that you need to decrease exercise, right? So exercise is a stressor on your body. It's a good stressor, but it still is a stressor. So walks, yoga, all of that as well during your first month or so of getting off of the medication. So those are some of the things that I did with the side effects that I was dealing with.
So 3 years later, 3 plus years later, do you still find yourself having to have those conversations with yourself that you don't need it, or is it totally in the past for you?
Totally in the past. It's that's, I think, one of my biggest wins and one of my biggest, like, yes, you can do this, is like I don't I don't now say it's because I don't have Adderall. I now say, okay, what's the underlying issue that I'm going through? Okay, my body is really stressed out. I'm having these symptoms. Seems like it's thyroid. I need to look at this, right? Okay, what's my environment like? What's my relationships looking like right now? I'm looking at all the other aspects in my life and I'm saying, what needs to be fixed here? And I've spent a lot of time and a lot of money into personal growth. I've put a lot of time and money into understanding my body. That means, doing tests and just understanding what my body is doing and what works best for me. You have to see this as a long-term journey and you have to know your why.
Okay, something just happened and we lost one of our internet's dropped, and I apologize. However, we're just going to continue on. You guys listening know that my podcast is like an imperfect podcast, and here we are. So, actually, we were just about to head to wrap up anyway, but so I did want to touch on kind of where your journey has led you now, and if people decide to follow you on your Instagram, kind of what they're going to see you going through now.
Yeah, so I am very public and talk about any sort of journey that I'm going through. Right now, and this is what's funny is that the mold detox, the reason why I think that I struggled more in the process of getting off my meds is because I was actually living in an apartment in LA that had mold. So a lot of my issues were coming from toxins that were being put into my body. And I think my journey was probably 10 times harder because of that exact scenario. So highly recommend you guys looking at the environment you're living in. When it comes to symptoms like, bloating, fatigue, brain fog, all of those things, if they're lasting longer than a certain amount of time, definitely be looking into that. But on my page, you're going to find inspiration. You're going to find tips on being able to deal with some of these side effects, and just health and wellness in general, right? I'm very into sharing the best non-toxic tips, the best, tips for detox and all of those things. So lots of different things on my page that you can come and visit. And then I'm always there via DM if you guys have any questions. Currently, I'm coaching maybe 2 or 3 people a month. I'm very selective with who I coach, and I make sure that I have a naturopathic doctor that I also work with, that if we need labs or anything like that, I work side by side with the doctor as well.
That's awesome. So I'm gonna tag all of Shiva's socials in the description of this podcast. You can also find links to her stuff on our Instagram at Fit Girl Talk Radio. But yeah, you guys. So Shiva's gone through a lot. She's very open with her journey on her Instagram. She's got a large following, and I think a lot of people out there that may be going through things like this, and I don't tend to see a lot of it talked about. And maybe that's just because of who I'm following, but I don't see a lot of it. So I think it's really cool. Yeah. And I think it's cool that you're doing it. You probably get some negative feedback, like anybody that does doing something that's a little different. But Shiva makes it very clear she's not a doctor. She's not telling you to drop all your drugs and, move to an island. Like she's just saying that the possibility of finding out who you really are, it's possible and you can do it and it's worth it if you're willing to put in the time and effort. So yeah, did you have anything else? I know we got cut off in the middle of there, but anything else?
Oh, yeah. I just want to say, this is for the people who feel lost in what they're currently doing, right? I'm talking to the people who are on the medications and they have no guidance other than their doctor, which unfortunately doesn't guide them correctly. They're not telling them that, this doesn't have to be for the rest of your life, right? So that's who I'm speaking to. If you're happy on your medication, that is your prerogative. But I'm here to support and help people who feel lost.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank
Sure.
you for chatting with us. I loved having you and I hope to have you on again next season.
Absolutely. Thanks.